Can divorcing a missing spouse be done? The short answer is that you can get a divorce even if you can't find your husband or wife. It is unfortunately a bit more complicated than an uncontested divorce. If you were married, you need to have a court dissolve the marriage. This seems basic, but there are people who think that they can end the marriage by either tearing up the marriage license or just walking away from the marriage. No, that doesn't end the marriage. Not getting a divorce has severe property and support implications. This is why it is oftentimes very important to get to considering divorcing your missing spouse, whether husband or wife. Whether divorcing a missing spouse or someone who is not missing, the first step is serving them with the summons and complaint called the divorce papers. When we know where to find the husband or wife, we use a process server. Sometimes the husband or wife or even their lawyer will accept service. This saves the cost of a process server. Divorcing a missing spouse complicates the process. If your husband or wife can't be found, the law gives us several tools to solve the problem. In cases where the spouse's whereabouts are unknown, one can request the court's permission to serve them in other ways that are going to reasonably give them notice. Before being able to serve a missing spouse, you have to ask permission from the judge for alternate service. Under New York divorce law, only in-person service is allowed without a court order for some other form of service. Before the court allows any form of alternate service, you must prove that you exhaust all reasonable avenues, including contacting the spouse's last known employer, relatives, local hospitals, shelters, and utilizing the internet. We will sometimes advise the client to hire a private investigator. We have been successful in finding brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers. In these cases, the courts have allowed us to serve these relatives when we can't find the spouse. If your spouse is active on Facebook or other social media, the courts have allowed service on those platforms. Courts have even allowed service by text message or email. Once we have made our diligent service, you have to make a special motion to the court seeking alternate service. As discussed above, that can be served on a relative, by social media, email, or by publication in a local newspaper. The courts are very careful about alternate services and many times will reject the papers on the first submission and require that you do more searching. The most common method of serving a missing spouse is by publication in a local paper. You ask permission from the court to allow you to publish the divorce papers in a local newspaper. The cost for this is generally between $1,000 to $2,000. The paper will publish the notice 3 times and then provide an affidavit of publication. With the affidavit in hand, you can now go back to the judge and seek a divorce on default. If your husband or wife is avoiding service, we can get an order from the court to nail the papers to their door. Remember, one way or another service will happen. Once the court is satisfied that service has been done and the missing spouse has not appeared, it will order a default judgment. If there are no children or there is no marital property, the court will probably grant the divorce on the papers. However, if there are children involved or marital property, like a house or retirement assets, then the court may order an inquest. This is an in-person hearing before the court. It looks like a trial, except that the other side is not there. Why should get a divorce from a missing spouse? Out of sight, out of mind, right? Well, there are several good reasons. You want to get remarried. You are still legally tied to someone who has abandoned you. Your missing spouse is on the deed to the house. They can't do anything with the house because the missing spouse is still on the deed. Inheritance rights. You can't disinherit a spouse. A missing spouse can walk in after your death and try to get the assets you left the truly important people in your life. Remember, each case is unique. Give us a call at 516-352-2999 for a free 15-minute consultation.